In a world where voices are drowned out under the weight of cancel culture, there's one man who stands up and challenges the status quo with the audacity of a warrior. That man is Bill Burr. With his biting humor and incisive gaze, Burr has become a beacon of sanity in a sea of overflowing sensibilities. At a time when the slightest slip can be a reason for cancellation, he dares to shout what many think, but few dare to say. He's a breath of fresh air in an increasingly stifling environment, and his bold approach often leaves the audience with more questions than answers, challenging them to think beyond the boundaries imposed by the fear of judgment. Recently, Burr has shed light on the absurd dynamics of cancel culture. In a hilarious monologue, he criticizes how this trend has reached such an extreme point that it now seeks to cancel historical figures, even people who have already left this world. John Wayne, the iconic Hollywood actor, became an unexpected target for the awakening warriors. Imagine this, a discussion about comments made in 1971, rescued from a dusty corner of the past, becomes the center of a media storm. Burr can't help but laugh at the irony, highlighting how a group of people concerned about what a dead man said more than 50 years ago is a testament to the absurdity we're immersed in. "Are we so desperate that we no longer have anyone to cancel?" he asks, while the audience nods, amused and at the same time uncomfortable. Cancel culture, which began as a call for social justice, has overflowed and created a monster that seems to have no end. From the tweets of once famous people to the scandals of those who have passed away, the witch hunt knows no bounds. The hypocrisy of canceling historical figures resonates through his speech. Who are these new inquisitors? And why do they feel the need to eliminate voices from the past, even if they cannot defend themselves? Louis C.K. quote, "S return to comedy also becomes a hot topic." Despite the controversy surrounding him, Burr observes how comedians, including themselves, must navigate a minefield of opinions. Some applaud Louis' return, while others condemn him. "Shouldn't we allow someone to get up from the canvas after falling?" asks Burr, suggesting that, at the end of the day, we are all human and we all make mistakes. But where do we draw the line between responsibility and cruelty? A man's life can be shattered by stupid decisions, and Burr questions the logic behind cancel culture that seeks to banish those who make mistakes. Comedy, he says, is a haven for uncomfortable truths and a means to explore humanity in its rawest form. As Burr delves into the subject, audiences find themselves caught up in his narrative, feeling like they're on a journey of reflection. As she critiques the disturbing dynamics of modern activism, she also delves into the hypocrisy that she believes has plagued those who began to promote equality. From women who have taken over the awakening movement, to those who complain about their own oppression while enjoying the privileges of the system they claim to reject, Burr highlights a disturbing reality. He scoffs at how some of these women, in a hot tub, complain about how hard it is to be a white woman in America, while he watches the scene with a critical, scathing gaze. And it doesn't stop there. Burr touches on an even more controversial topic: body positivity. It's not against self-love, but it challenges the glorification of unhealthy lifestyles. "Since when do we celebrate the lack of personal care?" she asks. When questioning whether it is right for a woman not to lose weight for a role, she stresses that, in the context of acting, physical demands are part of the job. This line of thinking has earned him applause and criticism alike, but what is undeniable is that it provokes deep reflection on how we approach health and self-acceptance. The icing on the cake comes with his bold analysis of transgender athletes in sport. Burr raises provocative questions. Is it fair for a man who identifies as a woman to compete in women's sports? His concern resonates. Biology matters. By comparing the competition of a man ranked 80th in tennis to number 1 in the women's division, Burr highlights the need for honest and direct debate on the issue, rather than letting fear of judgment silence important conversations. As the narrative progresses, it becomes apparent that what Burr is really standing for is free speech. Their humor can be uncomfortable, but it is this same humor that defies complacency. In an era where the fear of offending hangs over every word, Burr stands as an advocate of comedy and open dialogue. "If we kill comedy, we kill progress," he warns, leaving his audience to reflect on the consequences of silencing the voices they dare to question. So here we are, on the verge of a new conversation, a debate that many are afraid to engage. Bill Burr's courage to touch on these difficult topics not only challenges cancel culture, but also invites us all to question our own beliefs. In a world that seeks to pigeonhole us and dictate what we can or cannot say, his voice resonates louder than ever, challenging us to think and perhaps to laugh at the absurdity that often surrounds us. So, as we continue to explore these complex realities, are you ready to join the conversation and unravel the truth behind comedy? Stay alert, because in Bill Burr's laughter, there is also a deep reflection on the path to freedom of expression and the importance of facing discomfort. As Bill Burr's laughter echoes through the air, it becomes clear that his comedy goes beyond simple provocation. It is a bold exploration of current social dynamics. Cancel culture, to which so many have surrendered, becomes the target of his razor-sharp satire. By addressing the absurdity of contemporary trends, Burr sparks an unease in the audience, forcing them to confront the contradictions that lurk in the social justice narrative. In his sharp gaze, he wonders, where is all this taking us? Burr's reflections are not only a critique of the hypocrisy of certain social movements, but also a call for reflection. Cancel culture, which began as a platform to amplify marginalized voices, has morphed into a battleground where the fear of judgment is more potent than the search for truth. His voice stands as a rallying cry against conformity, a reminder that comedy should be a safe space for discomfort and controversy. At one point, Burr addresses the fluctuating norms of what is considered acceptable in contemporary culture. It pokes fun at the way everyone suddenly needs to be an expert on a specific topic, and how the lack of nuance has stripped debates of their richness. Her style not only entertains, it incites critical reflection. As he recounts anecdotes from his life and experiences on stage, audiences are drawn into his narrative, knowing that behind every joke is a deep and provocative truth. In examining the way culture has changed, Burr asks a fundamental question: why have we allowed the fear of conflict to dictate our interactions? In his perspective, dialogue should be a dance between different points of view, not a battle where those who dare to dissent are crushed. This is a concept that many in your audience have felt, but few have expressed so eloquently. The urgency of regaining the ability to speak openly becomes palpable, and his monologue becomes a manifesto for those who yearn for a sincere and unfiltered conversation. Humor, as Burr understands it, is a bridge, a means to connect experiences and feelings, but also a tool to unmask truths that are uncomfortable. Sometimes you need to make people laugh to get them to listen, he says, and his approach resonates between laughter and murmurs of nod. While facing the challenges of today's culture, Burr stresses the need for space for disagreement, arguing that personal and social growth comes from exploring the uncomfortable. However, his criticism goes beyond the superficial. As he touches on topics like body positivity and representation in media, Burr doesn't shy away from the sharpest edges. By questioning the glorification of unhealthy lifestyles, it challenges the audience to reflect on what kind of messages we really want to promote. Is it empowering to let go, or is it a way to give up? He asks. Her narrative becomes a call to personal responsibility, a reminder that loving ourselves shouldn't mean neglecting health and well-being. As her speech moves on to the issue of transgender athletes, you can feel the tension in the air. Burr refuses to soften his approach. His argument does not come from a place of hatred, but from a genuine concern for justice in sport. Alluding to the physical disparity that exists between men and women, he suggests that biology cannot be ignored in the name of inclusion. Equity is not achieved by ignoring differences, it's achieved by embracing them, he says, challenging the audience to consider how to balance individual rights with the principle of equality in the competitive arena. Burr becomes a symbol of resistance, a comedian who refuses to bow to social pressures. Laughter becomes their weapon, a way to dismantle the fear that consumes so many people today. If comedy becomes dangerous territory, then we're in trouble, he warns, as viewers find themselves on a journey of introspection. Are we really willing to sacrifice freedom of speech in the name of convenience? Burr's authenticity shines through every word. It does not seek to please or fit into predefined molds. Instead, his message is clear. Laughter is essential to human understanding. His defiant style is a reminder that, at the end of the day, we are all vulnerable. We all make mistakes, and true connection comes when we can laugh at ourselves and the craziness of life. As the show unfolds, the audience feels more and more connected. The tension that sometimes accompanies these controversial topics dissipates in the lightness of the humor. However, the impact of his message persists. Through laughter, Burr invites reflection, and as the night progresses, it becomes clear that his work is not just comedy. It is a catalyst for change. The energy in the room is palpable. Laughter is intertwined with moments of deep reflection, and viewers are challenged to question not only what they think, but also how they express those thoughts. In a moment of self-criticism, Burr points out the importance of not allowing cancel culture to stifle our ability to debate and discuss. If we are afraid to speak, we are doomed, he says. As he concludes his act, it becomes clear that Bill Burr's comedy is much more than entertainment. It's a necessary conversation in a world that desperately longs to be heard. His laughter resonates as a call to courage, authenticity, and above all, freedom. In times when the fear of offending can silence the most sincere voices, laughter becomes a powerful antidote. As they leave the theater, the audience takes with them more than just laughter. They carry a spark of reflection, an invitation to dialogue without fear, and to re-examine the beliefs that govern our interactions. Burr's comedy, far from being merely humorous, is a reminder that there is also a liberating truth in laughter, and that in an ever-changing world, perhaps the bravest thing we can do is dare to say what we are all thinking, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Thus, as the echo of his voice dissipates, it is felt that the battle for freedom of expression is far from over, and that laughter will continue to be one of the most effective weapons in this fight. Bill Burr's voice reverberates in the minds of his listeners, resonating beyond laughter, into a territory where comedy and social criticism are intricately intertwined. With each joke, he reminds us that humor can be a refuge, a space where the harshest truths can be savored with a pinch of laughter. However, as we delve into this complex world that he explores, it also becomes clear that laughter is only the first step towards a deeper dialogue. As his words unfold, it becomes apparent that his role is not just that of a comedian. He is a thought-provoker. Through his keen observations on contemporary culture, Burr invites his audience to question their own beliefs and attitudes. Comedy, he suggests, should not be mere entertainment, but a powerful tool for challenging conformity and complacency. His defiant style is, in itself, a statement of resistance, a refusal to be silenced by a culture that, in its quest for justice, has often become blind to the complexity of humanity. As the conversation progresses, Burr explores the idea of accountability in discourse. It speaks of the need to have room for mistakes, to understand that we are all human and that we can all fall into the trap of misunderstandings. Life is full of nuances, he says, suggesting that true justice is not found in the elimination of those who have gone wrong, but in the opportunity to learn and grow from those mistakes. This notion of redemption becomes a common thread throughout his discourse, a reminder that forgiveness and understanding are essential in a world that often opts for condemnation. As the show progresses towards its climax, the energy in the room intensifies. Each joke becomes a turning point, a moment of revelation, where the audience feels invited to engage in a broader dialogue about freedom of expression. Burr tackles the criticism of comedy, confronting those who argue that jokes must always be politically correct. Since when did humor become a courtroom, he asks, and his statement resonates as a call to action. The truth is that humor has always played a fundamental role in social criticism. From the laughing cries of jesters in medieval courts to the biting monologues of contemporary comedians, comedy has served as a mirror of society, reflecting its flaws and contradictions. Burr, with its unique style, stands firmly in that tradition. He dares to ask uncomfortable questions and challenge the prevailing narrative, turning his comedy into a vehicle for change and reflection. The end of the show feels like an explosion of energy. Laughter and reflection intertwine in a crescendo that leaves the audience with a deep sense of connection and understanding. As they leave the theater, each spectator carries with them a powerful message. Comedy is more than just a laugh. It is an invitation to conversation, reflection, and above all, authenticity. Burr has shown us that despite the pressures of today's culture, there is always room for laughter, for controversy, and most importantly, for honest dialogue. As the spectators disperse, the atmosphere feels charged with possibilities. Burr's comedy acts as a catalyst, that provokes a self-examination and a re-evaluation of what it means to live in a world where sensitivity and honesty often collide. Laughter becomes a form of resistance, an act of defiance against an established order that seeks to silence dissenting voices. The relevance of his message transcends the moment. It is a call to embrace the complexity of the human experience. In the end, his voice resonates, an echo that invites everyone to ask themselves, are we willing to listen and debate, to challenge our own beliefs, and to find value in discomfort? Through the lens of comedy, Bill Burr has pushed us into a place where laughter meets reflection, where humor becomes a means of exploring truth in all its forms. In a world that often seems divided, his message resonates like a beacon of hope. Laughter, dialogue, and mutual understanding can be the key to forging deeper connections between us. Perhaps, after all, what we really need is more comedians willing to challenge the status quo, make us laugh, and in the process, make us think. Thus, as Burr's laughter fades into the collective memory, the question lingers in the air. Are we ready to embrace laughter as a path to truth and human connection? With every joke, with every shared laugh, the answer seems to be closer to being a glimmer of light in the darkness of today's discourse. The fight for freedom of expression and authenticity in comedy is an ongoing journey, and with voices like Bill Burr's, that path lights up, inviting us all to join the conversation. As they leave the theater, the cool breeze of the night caresses the faces of the spectators, still vibrant with the laughter and difficult truths they have just witnessed. Conversations flow, people discuss what they've heard, and it's clear that Burr has not only managed to make them laugh, but has planted a seed of reflection in their minds. Shared laughter is mixed with questioning. When was the last time you allowed yourself to say what you really thought without fear of the consequences? The atmosphere is charged with a palpable energy, a sense of urgency to explore the boundaries of conversation. Cancel culture, a monster that seems to have no end, becomes a recurring theme among groups that dissipate on the sidewalks. Some lament the demise of a space where comedy can flourish unfettered, while others argue about the responsibility comedians have towards their audiences. The duality of conversation is undeniable. On the one hand, there is the desire to be free to express thoughts without censorship. On the other, the need to be responsible with the words that are spoken. This precarious balance is precisely what Burr has brought to the table, challenging everyone to not only laugh, but also to actively engage with the reality around them. In one corner, a group of friends laugh as they recall one of Burr's jokes, while another group a little further away argues heatedly about the implications of his comments about white women and privilege. That ability to generate conversation and debate is perhaps the true power of comedy. Not only does it entertain, but it also raises questions about social structures and inequalities that many prefer to ignore. Comedy, in its purest form, can serve as a mirror reflecting the uncomfortable truths of life. As the night progresses, the conversation turns into a mix of laughter and deeper reflections. Some mention how comedy has changed over the years, especially in an era where sensibility has taken center stage. They wonder if they'll ever see a world where comedians dare to explore all taboos, or if they'll be forced to navigate a minefield of potential offenses. This is a valid concern in a world where discourse seems increasingly divided and polarized. Burr's voice, then, rises like a beacon in the fog, an invitation to rethink what it means to be truly free to express oneself. The need to return to the essence of comedy as a space to challenge the norm, to break down barriers and to celebrate the diversity of opinions is more relevant than ever. Laughter can be a great equalizer, and Burr knows it. His comedy is a call to action, a reminder that humor should not be a battlefield, but a bridge to understanding. In a corner of the nearby bar, a lively discussion about the role of social media in cancel culture is heard. Some argue that while digital platforms have given a voice to those who previously had none, they have also created an environment where surveillance and judgment are constant. Others, however, argue for the need for greater accountability in how these tools are used, suggesting that perhaps the solution is not to eliminate comedy, but to educate about its context and meaning. And so, as the conversations turn and evolve, it becomes clear that the night has not only been a comedy show, but a turning point in collective thinking. Burr's words have left an indelible mark, an echo that resonates beyond the stage and invites everyone to rethink their own opinions, to question the status quo, and to have the courage to speak up when it feels necessary. This is the essence of comedy, a space where voices can intertwine and resonate, challenging the culture that tries to silence honest dialogue. The journey of reflection continues, and each viewer takes with them not only a good time, but also a push towards introspection. Laughter becomes fuel for change, and Bill Burr's comedy, with its biting and sharpness, becomes a catalyst for conversations that need to happen. As people disperse through the streets, a new sense of community is felt in the air, a reminder that, despite differences, we all share a fundamental desire to be heard and understood. Ultimately, what Burr has done goes beyond simple comedy. It has opened a door to a broader conversation about freedom of expression, accountability, and the need for a space where dissent is allowed. And as the world continues to grapple with its own divisions, perhaps laughter and humor are the tools we need to build bridges rather than walls. The night may be over, but the conversations are just beginning, and every laugh shared becomes a step toward a more inclusive and understanding future. The struggle for the space in which comedy can exist freely is just one chapter in a much larger book, and every comedian, like Burr, becomes a protagonist in humanity's narrative. So, as people continue on their way, it becomes clear that even though the culture may change, the need for laughter, truth, and human connection will always persist.